to this episode of Becoming an Artist. In this one, I'm going to be speaking to the artist Eelus about how he became a full-time artist, how he approached galleries with his work, and how he ended up having a sellout print release on his first go. And we're going to be chatting about lots of different things. And as always, I've created a little diagram for you that you can download at becominganartist.co.uk. So this is Becoming a Gallery Artist, which has got a little path as to how that you can get there and how you can follow in his footsteps. So I really hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll see you soon. So I'm here today with Lee, otherwise known as Eelus, who started his career in the world of street art and then became a gallery artist, selling prints, originals, and doing gallery shows. His styles developed and changed over the years, and his work is always in high demand with regular sellout print releases. But his biggest claim to fame is that he used to be my next door neighbour. It's true, isn't it? Biggest claim to fame. How are you doing? How are you doing, Lee?
You're good. Right? Good. Yeah. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. So the first time I saw your work was in that. Do you remember that little gallery in Brighton, the Inked one?
Inked.
And you've done these amazing horror paper cuts.
Yeah.
Like the face. And I just thought, wow, they were incredible. And I was just like, I loved that you'd done that kind of juxtaposition thing between kind of the delicate kind of paper cut and this kind of horror genre that you were kind of doing that with. And that was just, I just loved it. That was before I knew you were my next door neighbour. And when I found out, I was like, oh my God.
No way. That's so funny. I didn't know that.
I was like, wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, very cool. So you've done lots of different things over the years, haven't you? You've done lots of, you've kind of experimented with lots of different styles and mediums and things like that. So now you're kind of painting these big canvases and stuff like that. But before you started off in the world of street art. But can I go right back to the beginning of your journey? Did you go to art school, or are you all kind of self-taught, or what happened there?
Yeah, I'm all self-taught. I mean, basically, like, art was definitely the way that I wanted to go. I mean, as far back as I can remember, like primary school, secondary school, it was, other than English, it was the only subject that I was good at. I kind of, everything else, math, science, I was just awful. Really struggled. And so it just felt so natural, which I guess it does to most people at a young age. It's such a natural form of expression that, you know,
absolutely,
all children have, don't they? And then you kind of grow up and you get really self-conscious and then you stop doing it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But then in high school, basically the careers advice that I was given was that you would, you know, art was just, you know, you've probably more chance of being an astronaut than an artist.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
You know, it was like, well, you know,
it's terrible advice, isn't it? Like because there's so many directions you can go in with it, and it's just.
Well, it was just so like, oh, you have a dream. Oh, we'll take that.
Yeah.
No. You won't. We'll take this. You won't be needing this.
I know, and you kind of have to like break through that and kind of ignore it, don't you? This advice that you're given and kind of keep going, which you obviously did.
Well, it's hard at the time because you don't really ignore it, especially, you know, because you're just this innocent, completely clueless child, and you're like, oh, okay, you know. So they're like, oh, have you heard of graphic design? You know, if you're lucky, you know, you might get a job in a studio in your local town where you can design the menus for the pizza takeaway. And maybe you can do business cards for the funeral parlor. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, that's my option. Rather than do that, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
So then they kind of put you on this track, which is what happened. So I was on this like road of graphic design. So then I did like degrees and all that.
So your degree was in graphic design, was it?
Yes.
You did.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I did my degree in that, and then I was really fortunate. Straight out of my degree, I got a job in a really good company in London, that kind of
Yeah.
specialised in web design. And I basically just lied in my interview. I'd never done any web design, and I just blagged it, and then kind of all of a sudden got into this job that was all screen-based web design, online media, and I had
Right.
no idea what I was doing. I just had to
Yeah. So what
lie.
did you do in that situation? Did you kind of just, did you ask lots of questions, or did you kind of like sneakily kind of befriend someone who helped you
Well, yeah,
to kind
It
of...
was a bit like that, but I mean, luckily, I ended up in the position where I was doing all the front end design, which would
Yeah.
then be handed over to the builders and the coders and that kind of thing.
Okay.
But it took me quite a while then, kind of getting my head from like two-dimensional print-based design, which is pretty much like what my degree was in, really,
Right.
because we did very little screen-based stuff, and then into
Yeah.
like web design and game design, and then trying to think in that, how somebody will actually use a website and the functionality and designing things. It's completely different to like a print design.
Yeah.
So it was a
But I
very
suppose there
steep.
is a bit of crossover, isn't there? Like
Oh yeah, yeah. I
generally
mean,
kind of
basic, yeah, like kind of like just
what
composition
looks
and
good
your
and what, yeah.
palette and
Yeah.
just typography and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I had a foundation and all that, so it was a steep learning curve. Um, and then I had jobs in various companies. I mean, a lot of the work was quite cool in a way. It was doing a lot of what do you call it, like game design. So
Okay. What
lots of
kind of
like
game stuff was it?
pixel art and that kind of thing for like bigger
Okay.
brands. And I did a lot of things that were tied into like PlayStation games, like certain graphics for that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it became apparent very quickly that I'd gone down this like years and years of graphic design, and then when I was there in the industry, I was like, shit, I'm not enjoying this at all.
How long did it take you before you kind of had that moment where you were like, oh, I've kind of gone a bit wrong here?
I reckon it was probably about 6 months in.
Okay.
6 months
And
to
then did
yeah.
you stay longer after
Oh
that?
yeah, I was in
Because
I was in
yeah.
that industry for let me think, at least probably like 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
And I
So
just kind of like working in this like environment, like in an office for people, having to
yeah.
work with other people as part of a team, and just doing this thing that I didn't enjoy. Yeah, it became apparent very quickly that I wasn't cut out for that at all. Like I really struggled
Right.
just
Well, you
interacting with
just struggled
people.
with, yeah, I was just going to say, was it the interaction with people that
Yeah, it
you
was the
were,
whole
and the
thing. Yeah, yeah,
clients?
yeah. Like I
Because
wasn't.
it's the culture, isn't it? I think sometimes can
Yes.
be a bit kind of depressing, and you're
Yeah,
kind of churning
absolutely.
out work, and yeah, sometimes it gets on top of you, doesn't it?
It's being
So
that kind of. It's just being like a cog in the big
yeah,
machine. You're a link in a long chain, and I
yeah,
just really, I really struggled with that.
yeah,
And now,
and
like
it
at
did,
this, yeah, I know why. Like my brain just doesn't work like that now. And like the
yeah,
kind of, I was creatively like struggling. I wasn't very like fulfilled, and that's kind of what sent me down
yeah,
the street art route. That was like
yeah. So
my
how did that kind
therapy.
of come about? Tell me what the, so you were working in this graphic design job, and
Yeah.
what you were in London, were you at this time? Is that
So
right?
the first job was in West London on Ladbroke Grove.
Okay, right,
And so, like, we would very often like go and get lunch, like around Portobello, and then
right,
you'd see like these Banksy pieces popping up around there. Trying to think which ones now. All kinds of pieces, but it was like this really like this that whole scene was kind of starting, like gaining momentum. The
yeah,
press hadn't really dived on the back of Banksy at that point. He was still like putting up his own shows in the Dragon Bar where you could buy paintings for like next to nothing. Do you know what I mean? This tiny little upstairs.
damn, wish you could
I
go
know.
back in time and grab some.
Hindsight. Yeah, I know. Oh, fucking hell. So it was like super early. So like we would, on my lunch breaks, and then and I lived east, so I'd get the train back east every day,
Okay.
like round
Yeah.
Hackney and Dalston, and then we would drink round Shoreditch. So then I would see more Banksy stuff there. And
Yeah.
then I would see work from like Mysterious Al and D-Face and Dave Chimp and PMH and all these guys like doing stencils and wheat pastes and stickers and throw-ups and all
Yeah.
this, and like coming from the north, there wasn't any street art really or graffiti up there. So it was just felt really exciting.
Yeah. I
And
bet.
so I was like a big fan, like to start with Frady. So I was like buying all the books on stencil art, and I'd go around at the weekends with my camera and like document the scene and just wander around
So you were kind of
Shoreditch.
doing a research kind of
Well, it wasn't
phase of
even
like,
that to start. It was just being really into it. I was just documenting
yeah,
the scene. I was just
yeah,
go around, see what new pieces I could see, just take hundreds of photographs over a weekend,
yeah,
just for the fun of it, really. And then it got to
yeah,
the point where I was like, well, I can do this. I was seeing a lot of work that I knew I could probably improve on.
yeah,
And
yeah,
because I had this like hole, that needed fulfilled, like this hole that needed
yeah.
filling creatively. So I just started to teach myself to cut and paint stencils.
What was your first one? Do you remember? Do you remember where it was and
The
what it was?
very, very first stencil I made was of just like a very simple woman's face. I think it was from like an old like 1950s, 1960s magazine that I had. It's very kind of pin-up style.
Okay,
Just
right,
like
yeah, got ya.
two colours. I remember trying to get
Yeah,
my head around like the registration and the two colours, and just like it really struggling in those early days to like, it's kind of like screen printing, how to kind of like layer the colours on top of each other to get the final
and you've
image.
got to reverse your brain a bit with the
Well,
stencil
that's
and
what I had
screen
trouble with.
printing,
Is
haven't you? And that's
yeah,
it's really difficult.
yeah, exactly. And then like when you're cutting, like the negative shapes have to be bridged off, so you can't, all this
Yeah,
kind of stuff. So I
it's
started
quite
teaching
technical,
myself.
really, isn't it? It's really
Yeah, it
kind of
is. Yeah, yeah. And
yeah,
then I started like doing just taking things out of my sketchbooks at the time, little kind of weird characters. And then I was living in Homerton, and I would like paint them all around Homerton, and then we'd go out like round Hackney and Dalston, and then again in Shoreditch painting little pieces.
So you had a group of you at that point.
Well,
There's
it
a
was
few
just
people,
no, it was just me. But I
just
kind
you.
of rope in friends every now and again to come and like give me a hand.
Look out.
Yeah, and then we'd go out like putting like wheat pastes up, and then have a few beers on the way, and
Oh,
like going
nice.
from pub to pub with like a little bucket of like wallpaper paste. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah,
weird.
totally.
Like nothing to see here, just a man with a bucket of wallpaper paste having a pint.
So, and were you ever scared at that and at the beginning, both being caught or anything like that? Because that's one of the things that kind of puts me off, kind of doing painting on outside
Yeah, I
walls
wasn't.
of
No,
people.
not really, because I think all the work I was doing was pretty. It was like really small, so like you were in and out
Right.
really quickly. I did try to do like bigger pieces at the time, like at night, and I was just
Yeah.
so bad. Like I was just so like I got fairly anxious then. Like try to do this like big pieces with registration and stuff, and it was just taking me so long, and I was panicking so
Yeah.
much that they never worked out very well. So I kind of
Why was
stuck
that
to
then?
more.
Just because you needed more practice, or
Probably
was
more
it just,
practice, more confidence. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Okay.
But I just ended up rushing a lot through fear of getting caught. Like I was never that
Yeah.
good, really. So all my work was fairly small. Um, but
And
then
then
at the
what
time,
happened?
so like I knew like this like Pictures on Walls, who were the company who would like produce these screen prints for artists at the time that Banksy um,
Right.
was a part of. Like he kind of like co-owned the company.
Okay. Right.
And I found out where their offices were, and so then I started like strategically kind of painting stencils like around,
I love that. That's such a cool idea.
just like this kind of like it was like guerrilla marketing for myself. I was like, well, I
That's
want to work with these
fantastic. Just
people.
having that, yeah, having that like thought to do that. Like, oh, you did your research and you kind of, yeah, made
Well,
them
it was
see what
just
you were doing,
yeah. Well, it was
basically.
just it was kind of desperation because I went. Pictures on Walls used to do this thing every year, like a Christmas show called Santa's Ghetto,
Right.
And you'd have like, well, the very first one that I went to, I'm pretty sure it was on Carnaby Street. I can't remember. I mean, this must have been the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And without wanting to kind of like over dramatize it, I went in there with my friend and saw like for the first time like these framed, like I'd never seen a screen print before, and there was these
Yeah.
like screen printed limited editions by Jamie Hewlett and Mode 2 and Banksy, Pete Fowler, maybe a few others, and it just blew my mind completely. I was just like, fucking hell, so limited editions, right? So they're signed and numbered and it's a screen print, right? What is that? Like, I need to know what that is. And
Yeah.
and I literally, like, I walked out of the Santa's Ghetto and I was like, that is what I want to do. Like, it changed
Yeah.
everything and it gave me this goal to head towards.
Yeah.
And that's when I started, right, okay, who did that? Pictures on walls, where are they? Right, they're over here. Right, let's, how can I get involved with these people?
Right.
And painting the stencils around, and then I emailed them and said, "Oh, I've got this image, which was of a young girl, like the Star Wars AT-AT things,
Yeah. I've seen that one of yours.
taking one of those for a walk." So I was painting that around.
Yeah.
It started off as just like a T-shirt idea. I used to have a stall in Camden where I would sell like paintings. Yeah, I'd sell like my own paintings and like my own T-shirts and stuff. And it started life as a T-shirt design, and I started painting it. And then it was Ein who then sent me the email back, and he was like, "Yeah, we've seen this piece around, and like me and Banksy really like it. Come in and chat to us."
So Banksy personally liked that. He said, "That's amazing."
That's what I was told. Yeah,
you must have been like just pissing your pants at that point.
Yeah, I was. It's like, no way. Like, I wish I'd printed the email. Like, I even got an email from Banksy once, like back in those days. And you know what? I printed it. And it's like, I think I put it inside a book to keep it safe. And I've literally, like, if you can, I'm surrounded by thousands of books and I can't find it anywhere. I don't know where it is.
That's going to be a whole day of an activity for you one day when you kind of and you need to find it.
Oh my God, you know what? I'd probably, like, because the amount of books that I get rid of as well, like, they all go down to, like, Minds. Like, someone's gone and bought a book from Minds charity shop.
And
just, like,
with an email in it.
Yeah, what the fuck is this? Like, put it in the bin. It's gone. Oh, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you were really happy about getting that email then. So that's,
that
is amazing.
Yeah, and I was like, right, okay, I kind of felt like I was almost kind of coming in somewhere. Like the back door, really, because I didn't go to art school at all.
Yeah,
I'd only like just started to teach myself how to paint stencils, and then now I had pictures on walls asking me to do like a print edition. So then I had to learn how to create artwork for a print edition. So then another steep learning curve, and so then we did that, and we released the print edition of Shat-At, which was the girl walking the AT-AT, and we did like.
So how did you go about making the artwork? Was that all in kind of Photoshop and things like that you had to do it? Or
so I mean, I was really fluent in Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop anyway, just because of the graphic design background.
Exactly, yeah.
So I knew what I was doing with all that side of stuff, like super easy. So. But then I had to chat with like the screen printers and learn about like the layering process and the registration and color separations and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. But I guess that probably wasn't too difficult if you had that kind of image layer.
No, it wasn't. No, because it was very similar to stenciling.
Yeah,
like the two mediums are very similar, which I quite like. And I was getting lots of advice from the printers and working with them as closely as possible, just to kind of like get as much knowledge out of them. And then the first edition, it was so easy. It was just a 2-color screen print.
Yeah.
So we did. I think we've released 5 editions, like in different colors. I think we did 200. Each color was a limited edition of 200.
Yeah.
And then they all sold out, like really quickly.
Right. Was that unusual, or was that kind of?
Well, I think Pictures on Walls were surprised.
Unusual
at how
for you doing the first one. Yeah, I suppose it's
your
first
I had no
one.
idea. I mean, I was really shocked. I was like, right, okay. Um,
That's
and at the
fantastic, though,
time,
isn't it?
yeah, and at the time, I can remember going into Pictures on Walls one day, and apparently, I don't remember which colourway it was now of the edition, but one of them, whatever the record that Banksy had set for like the fastest selling print edition,
Yeah.
I'd just broken it, right?
Oh my God,
So I was
that's
just
so
like,
cool.
fucking hell, that's yeah. And that's when I got the
Brilliant.
email. And that's we like sent Banksy the email about that, and we kind of had a very quick like little bit of banter about that I'd broken his record. And then of course like he released the print like whatever, like 2 weeks later, just like smashed me out of the park again. But for that little moment in time, I was, yeah, I
So
was on a real
did you
high.
ever meet him? Do you ever meet
No,
him? Or was it It's
no.
just behind the scenes
Yeah,
email
totally.
exchange. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So then
But
that was
that's amazing.
that was the start of it. And because the prints did so well, it was like my first print edition. I'd never done one before, and because it sold
Yeah.
so well, I think the people buying the prints at the time, they just automatically assumed that I had a background, that I knew what I was doing, and in fact, I couldn't have been more clueless. I kind of
Well, maybe you
slipped in.
felt like that, but you had done lots of stuff and you had pushed yourself at each point, hadn't you? So you'd kind of push yourself to do that stencil around the area, and you push yourself to learn how to do stenciling, and you push yourself how to
Yeah,
learn how to do that. And it's just, I mean, even if you feel like you haven't got loads of experience in it, it's just having that kind of keeping pushing yourself to do these things,
yeah,
and you did that, and that's a really cool thing that you did. And it doesn't matter if you've done it 100 times or one time. They
yeah,
could see something in you, and it sold, and you create something that people wanted, which is also
yeah.
sometimes a really difficult thing to do.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think it was a mixture, like a 50% definitely working hard and desperately trying to get out of this industry, this hole that I'd found myself in.
Yeah.
So I had a real drive
Yeah.
of like, well, I think I can do this, and this is much more suited to me. So I'm going to put
Yeah,
everything I've got into this.
absolutely. Yeah,
But then also, it was the right place at the right time. Like I said, like
that's
the
it.
street
Yeah.
street art thing was really gaining momentum, but it was early days. There was little
Yeah.
street art galleries starting to pop up. So it was, then
Yeah.
getting in with Pictures on Walls, and it was like a snowball effect, and just getting in the door at this such a
Yeah,
crucial time that
absolutely.
I think really, really helped. I think, God, I can't imagine how hard it must be. Like if I'd have just started, like say last year or 2 years ago, I just don't think it would have happened. You know what I mean? I thought it would have been much, much harder, or a much more drawn out, like longer journey.
Maybe.
And.
But I wonder, because you did certain things, like you did your research, and you found out where their offices were and things like that. I think that's the key. And I think if people still did that now,
Mm,
I think that would make a difference. So just sort of thinking a bit differently, and maybe doing a bit more research, and that's what you did in that situation. I think so. If someone wanted to kind of follow your path, maybe that's kind of what they would
yeah,
need to do as well, is kind of properly do your research, figure out what kind of things these galleries are selling, and then kind of maybe try and align your style to them if it's not already,
yeah,
or whatever it is, and then kind of paint in that area or whatever, or go, you could find out where they hang out or something like that, and things like
well,
that,
this is
not
the
in a
thing.
stalkery way.
Yes,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
What what are they doing in there? Yeah.
Don't be
Well, this.
too intense. Don't be that person who's like hanging out in the bar in the corner
Oh
being
man, those people are out there. I've met loads of them. Yeah. They exist. They are absolutely real.
Don't be one of those. Don't be one of
No, don't
those.
do that. No, respect people's boundaries.
That's it. Respect the boundaries.
Yeah. But like, if you
Absolutely.
want, if
Yeah.
you're trying to get in, like, be helpful. Like, what can you do to help the people that you're trying to get close to? Like, don't
Yeah.
piss them off.
Totally.
Don't, respect their space and what they're trying to do. But like, can you help them?
Totally.
Can you help them for free? Can you assist them
Yeah.
in some way? Can you have like
Yeah. That's a good
one
point. Yeah.
afternoon in there? What can you? All you've got to offer, I'm guessing, is your time. you know,
Yeah.
and how can you just give them an afternoon or a day of your time to help them with whatever they need help with? If it's like
Yeah.
an artist studio or whatever, you know. I think it's kind of having that. I think I've always had like a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset. Like even,
Yeah.
you know, like the story that's on my bio on my website. Like I started off selling hand drawn posters of the
Yeah.
teenage turtles in the playground. That's a true story. Do you know what I mean? So like,
I
how
love
can I
that.
make some money? I'm going to draw these posters. I'm going to sell them, and then I can go and buy Snickers on the way home.
Yeah, so it's basically what you're doing, what you ended up doing with your life was
Totally.
what
I'm
you were
still
doing for
going out and just spending my money on Snickers. I'm just buying more Snickers. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is your house is filled with Snickers now.
Well, I can
So
afford
yeah,
Lindor. See, that's the thing now. So I've got
right, great.
all that.
Filled with rabbits.
Oh,
Linda
just
rabbits.
everything. Yeah. Any shop. Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, how can you? I mean,
Um,
there's a, you know, if you want to just be a hobbyist, that's fine. Like, be a hobbyist.
yeah,
You don't have to show people your work. You know, you don't have to take it too seriously. And there's a beauty in that because there's no pressure, and you can just do whatever you want to do. But if you're wanting to get into this thing where it's, well, actually, I want to be a professional. If professionalism and mastery is the end goal,
yeah,
then you have to take it so fucking seriously because it's so hard, and you
yeah,
have to be living and breathing and eating everything in that world all the time as much as
yeah,
possible. Not in like a toxic way. I'm not this like toxic productivity kind of like you have to be doing it all the time, but you have to be living it and be passionate about it and
yeah,
reading about it and knowing who the people are that you need to be speaking to
yeah,
and working on your style, developing all the time. You
yeah,
know, it's something that you because oh my god, it is so hard. Just the day to day and like making it a success. Like
yeah,
it's not for the faint hearted. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
that's what like the hobbyist. You know, there's such a beauty in that because there's so much freedom when there's no
yeah,
financial shackles to be tied to. But for the 1% of people who are like who have got it in them just to kind of really drive through and make it something really special.
yeah,
I guess it because we're all we are consumers of culture, like you, me, like all the people who actually get into this, it was illustration or design or art or video, photography, film, whatever it is you're doing. Like generally, like we all have really good taste, and we
yeah,
are consumers of culture, in all of its amazing forms. Like we
yeah,
love movies, like we love comics and graphic novels and literature and music and theatre, whatever it is. And then that kind of drive to go, well, I want to create my own culture. Like, what can I produce
yeah,
that becomes part of this beautiful
yeah,
world of creativity and culture that's going to make a
absolutely.
difference and inspire other people? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
becoming a
and
part of that world.
express your inner, whatever you want to express it from your internal world, I suppose, as
Exactly.
well.
Yeah. It's creating,
That's kind
your
of
own,
part of it, isn't it?
yeah, the development of your own visual language that then will
Yeah,
hopefully, it's your own planting your own flag in the world of culture. Like I've been here, like you're claiming your stake. You're not just an observer anymore, just consuming on the
yeah,
outside. It's like all of a sudden you've stepped through this mirror into like the wonderland, and you're like, fucking hell, I'm in. You know what I mean? Like, now what? I've got to create something that
yeah,
other people will then be consuming. And it's a
yeah,
beautiful thing, because there are people out there who love consuming, but for whatever reason, maybe they're too scared, they have anxieties and their own hang-ups, and they're just, or they can't for whatever reason. They're happy just consuming,
yeah,
which is beautiful. But then, it's creating for them. You know what I mean? It's like making
yeah,
work for them, like giving them a voice and helping them realize their own identity through like when you see movies and songs and albums that like really hit you and resonate with you, like
yeah,
imagine creating that album. You know what I mean? Like what music were
yeah,
you listening to like when
absolutely,
you were
yeah,
growing up that now that you
yeah,
you hear or like what art do you see that really twangs a chord in you, and it always will. That
Yeah.
chord will resonate in you and vibrate forever. That one painting,
Yeah.
you know, to be able to do
Yeah.
that for somebody else is just, it's magic. I mean, it's as close as
Yeah,
you're
it's
going to get.
amazing. Absolutely. It's such a cool connection with you and
Mm.
this audience.
Well, that's, yeah,
Do you get
connections are great. Yeah.
do you get like the same people often buying your pieces, or are you constantly finding a new audience? Is it kind of, or is it a mix
I think it's a
of that
mix.
those two?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a mix. I think I'm really lucky in that I think a large percentage of my buys are repeat buys.
Okay.
And I do as much as I can to try and nurture connections and relationships
Yeah.
with all those people, because they're,
Yeah.
you know, they are the reason that I'm allowed to keep doing this as a full-time job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Absolutely. Yeah.
they're patrons. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
patrons
Absolutely.
of the
Patrons of the
arts
arts.
as a whole, but of me, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
because of these people who are so fucking, you know, generous to actually choose to give
Yeah.
me some of their hard-earned money so that I can give them something that I've created,
Yeah.
is so humbling, and something that I still struggle to kind of accept.
Yeah.
So it's really important to me that, like, I guess I must be doing something right at this point. Like, I've been full time for, I don't know, 13 years at least. And a lot of the
Yeah. It's
customers, you know,
amazing.
I have so many customers who buy, you know, they have like 7, 8, 9 screen prints
Brilliant.
from me, and then they'll start to kind of upgrade, and then like start bringing like a painting into their collection, you know. And
Yeah.
it's, you know, and knowing these people on first name terms, and recognizing a lot of them when I'm out at various shows, and then chatting to them, and it's, you know, yeah, the
Yeah.
connections are really important.
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely. And I kind of wanted to talk to you because you've done lots of different kind of styles of work over the years. I've seen you do lots of different things. So you've kind of done some 3D sculptures, you've done some paper cuts that I've mentioned.
mhm.
Now you kind of paint these beautiful paintings. How did you find that transition period between doing all those things? Because I think that's often for me when I've done that, quite scary to be like, oh, I'm going to
Yeah.
try this and show people this stuff. Was that really difficult in terms of, I suppose, um, kind of the fear that you have and all that kind of stuff? Would you be able to talk a bit about that?
I've never really had a fear in
Okay,
switching direction. And now
great.
that I know that I'm ADHD, like, it's so, like, looking back, like, it's so obvious.
Apparent.
Yeah, it's
You're
just like,
like,
oh, right,
oh.
okay. Yeah, so, I really
Yeah,
struggle with sticking to one thing.
yeah,
And it's a tough one, and I don't really know how to advise people on this, because of the advice that I've been given. Like, there are galleries that I've worked with in the past. I remember one particular gallery said to me, "Well, you know, there's a reason why every Metallica album sounds like a Metallica album." Do you know what I mean? They don't veer off what they're known for. They are a brand, and they
yeah,
create the brand
yeah,
sound.
absolutely.
And the people who fucking love Metallica, like, they just want Metallica from one album to the next. Do
That's
you know what I
it.
mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I really, and I'm not that kind of artist. Like, I really struggle with that. Like, I'm more of a,
yeah,
you know, if we want to keep in the music, it's like Radiohead say, the development there, like, each one of their albums is so different to the album before it, and they really push the boundaries, and they try new sounds, and,
yeah,
you know, like going from, you know, OK Computer to Kid A, you know, such a huge step. Oh, well, let's just not use any guitars. Everything's going
yeah,
to be
exactly. Yeah,
electric. Do you know what I mean? And like the backlash
yeah,
they had, you know, it's like Dylan putting down the acoustic and picking up the electric.
yeah,
Some artists are just drawn to that thing, and I'm definitely one of those artists. And I see other artists who are, you know, they're really, really successful because, I don't know, they've painted the same thing
yeah,
for the last 20 years. And that would just drive me insane.
yeah.
Like, it would just suck the life out of everything that I do. So I do like to,
Yeah,
I mean, it's always trying to keep. There's got to be like a golden thread that runs through everything.
Yeah.
And I think if you bundled
Yeah.
everything that I have done together, I think there's a coherence, and it does look like you can. I'd hope you could see it's from the same person.
Yeah.
Like even like
I
the
think we
3D
could.
the 3D paper cuts, like they have all this texture of the spray paint that I use on my
Yeah.
stencils and my paintings, and the color palette is the same.
Yeah.
And they're all a bit strange, otherworldly, dreamlike, or
Yeah.
whimsical. And I think
That's true. Yeah,
it's like if
absolutely.
you're, I think knowing what your brand is and doing like I fucking hate the term deep dive, but if you, research and you have like a full understanding of who you are and what your personal brand is, even if you're an artist or an illustrator, obviously like having that knowledge of your brand,
Yeah. What
then you
your
can carry
values,
that.
I suppose, what you
Yeah,
stand for, and what you kind of
exactly. Yeah. And I think
what's
then you can
important
carry
to you.
that through, any medium, whether, all of a sudden you want to dive into like making videos or whatever.
Yeah. I
It'll
agree.
still be recognized as your output, and it'll still be within the world of like Eelus or Lucy Irving, or like you're the same, like everything, like you've
Yeah.
done motion graphics and video and your 2D illustration. It's all within
Yeah.
this lovely world of Lucy that you can instantly recognize because it's got your humor and your colors
Yeah.
and everything. And I
Yeah,
think that's,
definitely.
that's kind of like I couldn't do the same thing all the time. And I
I'm
don't,
definitely in your camp. I'm definitely, yeah. I'm definitely, oh, do this now, do this.
yeah,
I
yeah,
would
yeah.
really struggle doing the same thing. Do you speak to people, other artists, who see what you're doing and are kind of a bit jealous ever that you can switch between that? Are that they kind of maybe struggle a bit with how they are kind of having to do, maybe they feel like they have to do the same thing to like make a
Yeah,
living?
I don't know. I mean, I can't mention names, but I've heard stories like there are big artists that I know who have painted the same thing for a long, long time with the same style,
Yeah.
and that style just does so well for them,
Yeah.
like financially, that they can't really veer away from it. Like they're just backed into a corner. And yeah, you hear
Yeah.
these stories of like, oh, I spoke to blah blah. How are they doing? Yeah, they're not doing great because they're just so fucking bored of what they're painting all the time.
Yeah.
And it's
And that's a
difficult.
trap, isn't it? It's so difficult.
But this
Yeah.
is where there's this weird grey area where it's like finding that balance of producing work that's for you and that you're getting your own creative satisfaction, but actually also you're still produce. At the end of the day, it is if you wanted to be successful commercially,
Yeah.
the end goal is to sell the bloody thing, so it has to appeal to
Yeah.
somebody. So you
You've
can't you
got,
have
yeah,
a
you've got to consider the audience, haven't you? You've got to kind
yeah
of, they are part of your work as well. But I mean, I
yeah
think that's with any artwork, the audience are part of it, aren't they? They're kind of it kind of makes a different thing with someone looking at something or observing something. That's where the work exists, in that point between the piece and the observer. It exists here.
absolutely.
So
It's all a dialogue.
um
Yeah,
exactly, it's a dialogue. So
yeah.
um making money from that, and people wanting to buy your work,
Mm.
that's a great thing, because it means that they are connecting with it. And so the more money you make, the more people are kind of connecting with your work, in a sense, really.
Yeah,
But I think, I mean, it sounds to me like if someone feels trapped, like the people that you aren't mentioning names of, that potentially that it's their own trap that they're making for themselves. And actually, if they did try a different route or style, it probably would still be okay.
yeah.
Do
Oh,
you
yeah, it's
think?
hard. Yeah, I mean, you kind of build these. It's the gilded cage syndrome, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
which
again,
which
going
really
back
doesn't
to
exist, I think, and you could
yeah.
probably break out of it.
Well, I mean, take me for example. So I've got this like my stencil style that I've developed since like 2003, say. Um, a lot of my collectors that is all they want. You know what I mean? And there are
Yeah.
key pieces in my collection, like so you've got these black and white kind of slightly like textured grainy characters interacting with
Yeah.
very like uplifting, vibrant colours that are painted in a less textured way, very flat and graphic and hard edged.
Yeah.
So you've got this contrast between the two, and thematically they're generally, quite uplifting, positive. They have like messages of mental health for me in there and all this kind of stuff, and they're all in on that,
Yeah.
And I've been painting that for so long that it had to get to that point where it's like, I just need to do something else. Like I've got all these ideas, but they're not on this album. They don't work with this band.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I kind of,
absolutely.
I just need to go over here and like do the weird solo album, or just work with the other band for a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
For
I
so
love
long,
this music. Connection.
It's so true. Interchangeable, isn't it? Like it really is. Like,
absolutely.
And so it's taken me like, because for ages I was like, right now, fuck it, that's it. Like I'm leaving this band. This band is dead. Fucking, Viva la Revolution. I'm going to go over here and do all this other stuff.
Burn it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then there are still those people who are like, oh, just shut up and play the hits. Like, we don't want the fucking new experimental stuff. Like, we want, do you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
We just want the old stuff.
And you're just like, I'm bored of playing the old stuff. Shut up.
But you know what? It's weird, because I was like that for ages, and now, like the business, because it is a business model, and I do want to produce things that my collectors that I've brought with me on this journey over such a long period of time. I do still want to be producing work. Like if there's a market there, and if they want that, But now that I've developed, I have this other band that I'm also playing with, and I'm like making the two now kind of coexist, which is working really well. Like I'm actually, if I have an idea that's in the old style, I can do that. If I have an idea which is actually, well, no, this works more in my acrylics and brushes and oils or whatever, then I can do that. And and that was such a hang up for me for so long. Because I was so hung up on like the thing of like, it's confusing the brand. You're just gonna fucking confuse me. And now I'm just like, what? Like just make what you want to make on any given day. Just come in and like, sometimes I want to do this, and other times I want to do this. It's like you come in, you pick up the guitar, and you play whatever is in you on that day. Do you know what I mean? And it's trying my best not to kind of like overthink things.
And that kind of leads us quite well into I guess how maybe if you do kind of overthink things, or maybe you've just said you kind of got fed up with your work, or maybe if you feel like you're in a bit of a rut, what are some things that have helped you, and how often does that happen, and things like that? Do you have some advice for people, or some techniques
in terms of like
like that?
Well, like a creative block kind of sense, or just
like a block, or just feeling a bit shit about yourself. I think we all, it doesn't matter how much you've sold and how good people think you are. I think you still, as an artist, have those days where you're like, I'm just a piece of shit and I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, you do it all. I mean, literally, like that for me, like that inner dialogue is, I'm not kidding you, it is every day.
Really?
It's every day, and it's like just such a high level of like imposter syndrome, and and it's like, oh god, you're such a useless piece of shit.
Oh god!
Like it's just like, what, like, who do you think you are to like even think that anyone will ever,
but this is so sad.
But this is, and it's like, it's, I'm not like sitting in the corner crying. It's just like you've got to. It's like building this resilience of just like, well, actually, no, like. I've had therapy and that's really helped. And it's, so I think in terms of getting out of a rut, I think it's accepting the fact, I mean, if you are the kind of person who is going to think that, it's learning to develop ways that you're going to quiet that side of your brain down, because it's probably never going to go away, because unfortunately, if you experience that is how your brain is hardwired. Because of whatever you've experienced in your past, which has kind of molded the person that you are today. So it's, like things like meditation, spending time outdoors, exercise, which I'm trying to do more of. But just, you develop these little things which turn the volume down on that shitty side of your brain enough to help you get through the day. Another time, getting enough sleep is one of them. Like if you're tired,
that's a massive
definitely.
One, isn't it?
It's like, it's the foundation for everything. So if I'm really tired, then that volume on the shitty inner voice is like, oh, I just turned that up a little bit for you today.
You're right.
And it's like, oh, it's that fucking guy again. Like,
definitely. I mean, coming back to the present moment for me is really something that if I start getting into I'm like, you're here, you're doing this stuff, you're like, look at the stuff around you right now. What are you doing right now? Kind of reminding myself that I'm here, I'm not in here. And it kind of feels like, I don't know if it feels like you, but like if I catch it just before that point, before it gets momentum, like a pack of running horses or something, if I can catch it just before then, and for me it's kind of learning when that starts happening and catching it just before.
Exactly it.
If I let it go,
then
it's too much, and it's gone too far. It's just too. And that's from experience, isn't it? You're like, oh god, I'm going into it again. Right, come back here.
Absolutely.
Just keep doing that.
Yeah.
So,
and for me, like it develops. I can feel like it develops over like a. It's not like just. I mean, sometimes you wake up one day and it's just there, but you can kind of feel it creeping in and getting louder as the days go by. And if you're mindful enough, you can pick up on that and go, right, what am I getting enough sleep? Am I exercising? Am I eating well? Am I eating too much sugar? You know what I mean? It's all this stuff that's like, trying to nip it in the bud. But going back to like the rut thing, I guess, I don't know. I mean, take some time out and consume things that make you happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's so easy to kind of like, if you're doing this full time, to get into this rut of just like, oh, I'm so busy, I don't have the time to like look after myself. Like this is like self-care and creative self-care. It's like you're not gonna, you won't, your output will be shit if your input is shit. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
It's like if you're spending all your days eating fucking McDonald's, and drinking beer,
you're gonna have bad poos.
Your poos are going to be like the worst poos. It's like, you know what I mean? Like the people that you
and you want them to be this beautiful banana kind of consistency,
firm,
poo.
A nice colour. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not testing it. I will just do the eye test. I'll have a look. I'm picking up enough of my own dog's poos. Like, I'm not touching my own.
Yeah, I do the same.
So, like, if you're getting into a rut, just like you need to like self-care, like take some time out. Just go, no, I'm going to make some time for myself today. I'm going to go to an exhibition. I'm going to go and see a movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for a walk in nature. I'm going to go and see some friends. I'm going to go and spend time with people. I'm going to whatever it is, because you know what fills you up creatively, and that like when you get that sense of when you hear a good album or you see a good movie and you just feel like you've eaten a really healthy meal.
Excited, yeah.
But you just kind of feel this level of, it's like, oh man, that, like I felt that's fucking like a walk in the woods on a nice day.
It kind of touched you, it's like nice,
like when you spend time with a good friend that energizes you. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of feeling. It's like because it's so easy to just get so caught up in the frantic. I need to make. What am I making today? Yeah. You forget to fill the. Who was it? Is it somebody like filling the well? I can't remember now who coined that term, but like the creative well, you're constantly dipping in and you're taking from the well on a daily basis. And if you're not filling the well, you get to a point where the bucket is just going to hit dry earth at the bottom, and it's like that's when you run out of steam and you're like, oh fuck, now what?
Yeah.
Because you're scraping
around trying to.
You've got nothing. The well's empty.
Yeah.
You've got nothing. You're tired. You're creatively burnt out, and you've not been looking after yourself.
Yeah.
So I guess it's keep the well filled up, and try new things. buy it. I
Yeah.
don't know, like what haven't you used? Like, like
Experiment. Yeah.
buy yourself some oil pastels and some different paper.
Yeah.
Just go and just say, like, I'm going to go and spend an hour. I'm just going to go and fucking sit in the park and draw a tree
Yeah.
with,
God. Yeah, I was
like,
speaking to someone else. I saw
do you
this
know what I
woman in the
mean?
park the other day, just sat there like drawing, and I was like, I need to do that. I need to get out and do
Yeah.
that.
Oh my
To go
God, look at
outside.
that. Fucker over there giving herself time. She's obviously
I
not got a
know.
job to go to. Oh my God, you just get really big. Yeah. I wish I could sit and draw a fucking tree. But no, I've got to go to work and earn
I
some
can.
fucking money. Yeah.
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 But yeah,
Yeah, man.
we
Fill
should
the
all go out
well.
and draw some trees.
We
Go.
should.
Yeah.
My studio is just like opposite a graveyard. And like, I haven't done it like this year again. I haven't done it. But last year, went in the summer, I'd never
Yeah.
found it before. And I started going in there and just taking a sketchbook and like different ink pens, and I would just draw a tree like every lunchtime.
Oh, lovely.
And
That
they're
sounds great.
shit. Do you know what I mean? They're not great, but like, I'm not. They're not for anybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just that I'm going to sit and I'm just going to look at this tree in a way that I haven't looked at it before, and just see if I can draw it. And then I'm going to eat my sandwich and then go back to work and just.
That sounds
Do you know
great.
what I mean?
It sounds like, yeah, I mean, that sounds like the perfect lunch break, really, doesn't it? Going outside.
For me, it is. Yeah,
Maybe
sitting
eat
in
a sandwich.
sitting in a graveyard. Yeah.
Well, they can be quite nice places, though. You can find some cool stuff in graveyards.
Oh
can't
my
you?
God, this one. Have you been to this one? Do you know the one that I mean? Just
Do you
kind of
mean
behind Lewis Road. There's like a big one. I forget the name of it now. It's absolutely.
I know which one you mean.
It's massive. It is
Yeah, I
massive,
know which
and
one.
there's like an old part and a newer part. And when you go into the old part, it's like all the gravestones are like it's like real Tim Burton. There's like ivy everywhere, and there's like the all these like angels at an
like
angle.
angels. Yeah. I was gonna say,
and they've all got the ivy
I
around
did
them.
that.
So cool.
Yeah, it looks so cool. Yeah,
so
very
peaceful.
cool.
I keep trying to like Pearl. My daughter, she's 6, and I keep trying to get her to go in there, but she's not. She's kind of freaked out by the gravestone vibe. Like she won't.
Oh, bless her.
Trying to teach her like that. Well, it's really peaceful, and she's like, "It's too freaky." Fair enough.
She's going through the fighting stage. Just needs a couple more years, and she'll be fine. She'll be like,
I just need to get.
I want some ghosts.
As soon as I get her into some more Tim Burton and George Romero films, she'll be all over it.
She'll be fine.
Turn this frozen shit off. Here's Dawn of the...
That's enough.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Lee. That's been a brilliant chat.
Oh,
and
no
really,
worries,
really
Lucy.
valuable, really helpful.
That was loads of fun.
And take care, and I will see you soon.
You will see me soon. You'll see me tomorrow for a drink.
Yes. See you tomorrow for a drink.
Good to chat. Yeah.
Right,
see you later.
Take care.
Bye.
I really hope you enjoyed that episode of me chatting to Eelus about his creative journey. And don't forget to go to becominganartist.co.uk to download all of the resources from this episode and from all the other episodes. And also don't forget to subscribe on whatever you're on, if you're on YouTube or any of the podcast channels. Remember to give us a subscribe so that you know when all the new episodes are coming out. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks.